Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'm very sorry, starting so late today. We just spent the last almost 15 minutes fighting with the computer. Finally had to reboot. We were gone for a couple of days. We just survived through a cyclone here, which some were saying was the worst cyclone that's ever been in the Bay of Bengal. But having gone through the cyclone last year in Jagannath Puri, I can tell you this was just a playful ride of the roller coaster. It was nothing. At least in Mayapur. In Kolkata, it was quite a heavy thing. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, Devotional Service, text number 27. Asevayam prakritir gunanam Jnanena vairagya vijimbitena Yogena mayar pitaya cha bhaktya Mam pratyagatmana mihavarande. Thus, by not engaging in the service of the modes of material nature, but by developing Krishna consciousness, knowledge and renunciation, and by practicing yoga, in which the mind is always fixed in devotional service under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one achieves my association in this very life, for I am the Supreme Personality, the Absolute Truth. Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, when one engages in devotional service of the Lord in the 9 different kinds of bhakti yoga, as enunciated in authoritative scriptures such as hearing, shravanam, chanting, kirtanam, remembering, offering worship, praying, and offering personal service, either in one of them, or 2 or 3, or all of them, he naturally has no opportunity to engage in the service of the 3 modes of material nature. Unless one has engagements in devotional service, it's not possible to get out of the attachment to material service. Those who are not devotees, therefore, are interested in so-called humanitarian or philanthropic work, such as opening a hospital, a charitable institution. These are undoubtedly good works in the sense that they are pious activities, and the result is that the performer may get some opportunities for sense gratification, either in this life or in the next. Devotional service, however, is beyond the boundary of sense gratification. It is completely spiritual activity. When one engages in the spiritual activities of devotional service, naturally he does not get any opportunity to engage in sense gratificatory activities. Krishna conscious activities are performed not blindly, but with perfect understanding of knowledge and renunciation. This kind of yoga practice, in which the mind is always fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotion, results in liberation in this very life. The person who performs such acts gets in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya therefore approved the process of hearing from realized devotees about the pastimes of the Lord. It does not matter to what category of this world the audience belongs. If one meekly and submissively hears about the activities of the Lord from a realized soul, he will be able to conquer the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is unconquerable by any other process. Hearing or associating with devotees is a most important function for self-realization. Gora Graganya Gana Gota Goloruharam Goranga Gudatama Gopyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami. Vanchakalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this verse in purport today speaks, as Prabhupada writes in the purport, when one engages in the devotional service of the Lord, he says he naturally has no opportunity to engage in the service of the three modes of material nature. So the word guna, which is used in this verse, means rope, and it indicates bondage. So we should contemplate who is really a free person in this world, and what is the difference between slavery and service. There's a nice story in this regard that once there was a festival at the Gaudiya Mutt, and there was one big scholar who was known as a Shastri, who was very fond of eating good food. And so he was sitting down to take prasadam with the devotees, and he was relishing a very nice sweet called Malpur. And Ananta Vasudeva Prabhu spoke to him. Ananta Vasudeva Prabhu was one of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's leading disciples. And Bhakti Vikas Maharaj tells the story in his book, Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav. Ananta Vasudeva Prabhu addressed that scholar. He said, "Oh Shastri, are you eating the Malpur, or is the Malpur eating you?" He said, "Pandita hanakenina koraha vichar." You're a pandit, you're a scholar, so you should judge. What is your vichar? What is your understanding about this? And so he didn't catch Ananta Vasudeva Prabhu's point, and the scholar became very annoyed. And when he returned home, he wrote a long letter to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, part of which described how he said, "I went to the festival at the Mutt, yet while I was taking prasadam, I became disturbed at heart. I'm not a poor man. I'm getting a pension from the government. My 2 sons are earning well. My wife is expert in cooking so many delicious varieties of food. I've eaten plenty of Malpur. I didn't come to the Mutt to gorge on Malpur, but your disciple, Ananta Vasudeva, said to me, 'Are you eating the Malpur, or is the Malpur eating you?' Hearing that, I became very unhappy. Am I so greedy that the Malpur would eat me?" So when he read that letter, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he commented to a group of his disciples who were sitting there. He said, "Can the learned people of this world comprehend Ananta Vasudeva's question? Even among us, are there more than a few persons who can grasp it? It's not within the ability of humankind to appreciate these matters. Only by Krishna's mercy can all this be realized." So then he sent a reply back to that Shastri, conveying the real meaning of Vasudeva Prabhu's words. He told him that it's not fitting that we, quote, eat the prasad of the Lord. That is, that we measure it. If the prasad enjoys us, eats us, makes us its own, then we will conquer over matter, and that will be to our benefit. The meaning of prasad is favor or mercy. The remnants of a Vaishnava's prasad are called Maha Maha Prasad. So we should contemplate this very, very deeply. We think that, as in America, people think that freedom means to make lots of money and to have lots of sense enjoyment. And if the politician tells people, if you vote for me, you're going to get lots of money and lots of sense enjoyment, then people think, yes, this is very, very good. Because they have this idea. There's actually a saying I've seen says that whoever dies with the most toys wins. So the question comes then, just as Ananta Vasudeva Prabhu was questioning the scholar, are you eating the Malpur, or is the Malpur eating you? Whoever dies with the most toys wins. Do you own those toys, or do those toys own you? We should contemplate on it. It's a very, very deep principle. We like to read this statement by the comedian Ellen Goodman, where she said, "Normal is getting dressed in clothes that you buy for work, driving through traffic in a car that you're still paying for in order to get to a job that you need so you can pay for the clothes, car, and the house that you leave empty all day in order to afford to live in it." That's what people consider to be normal. And people today, they're very proud in this world that there's no more slavery. We abolished slavery. Slavery was something in the 1800s. And America, when it first started, was a very backward country because they had slavery. And Europe was very backward. And now we've liberated all the slaves. But really, have we? People today are also slaves, but they're slaves to their credit cards. They're slaves to the big manufacturing companies and corporate groups. They've become slaves, but it just looks nice. People have to work. And the things that we think are giving me pleasure are the same things which own me. I think I own a nice cell phone. But do I own the cell phone, or does the cell phone own me? I become a slave to the cell phone. I'm always afraid someone's going to steal my cell phone. I'm always addicted to the cell phone constantly, day and night. So does the cell phone own me, or do I own the cell phone? And so many of these toys in our world, they own us. It's described in the 11th canto, the Bhagavatam, Pashyat Paka Vipariyasam, that people who try to solve their problems using some material means, they get just exactly the opposite. And this is the nature of guna. People then, they become guna. They become attached to the modes of material nature, and they become slaves. They become controlled. This guna becomes then a rope. Arjuna asked Krishna in the 3rd chapter of the Gita, Atakena payukto yam papam chariti purusha anicham apivarshnaya balad eva niyojita. He said, Oh Krishna, oh descendant of Brishni, by what is someone forced to act, to perform sinful activities, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? This is Arjuna's observation. He says, look, I see there's a lot of big Kshatriyas, there's a lot of wealthy people. I know I'm the Yuvaraj, I'm the prince. But I see so many people who are supposed to be big people, and they're totally controlled. The Bhagavatam describes that, what is it? Yosit Kridamageshu cha, that such a person becomes like a dancing dog in the hands of a woman. He just wants to enjoy a woman, and that woman then begins to control him, and he becomes like a dancing dog. They become a slave. Although we think we're the masters, we think we're enjoying everything, we actually become slaves. Krishna answers Arjuna's question about how is it that someone is forced to sinful acts. He says, Kama esha krodha esha raja guna samudbhava mahasano mahapapma vidinam hivarinam. He says, Arjuna, it's lust only. Kama esha krodha esha raja guna samudbhava. It's lust and anger, which when coming in contact with rajagun, the mode of passion, it turns into anger. And that's the all-devouring enemy of this world, which forces people to do things. People in this world, they think, oh, I'm a free person, and I'm not going to bow down before anyone. But you're bowing down before the feet of your wife, you're bowing down before the feet of your husband, you're bowing down before the credit card companies, you're bowing down for all the people who give us sense gratification. And therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami describes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Kamaha dinam katina katida palita dunhi deshas tesham jata mai na karuna na tropa no pashanti utsri jaitanata yadupate sampraptam labdha buddhis tvam ayata sada namabhayam ham niruksvat madashye. He says, I have all these masters, these persons who are telling me what to do. Kama adi, beginning with lust, anger, greed, and illusion. Katida, katida. They've given me so many different orders. And palita donideshas. Palita, I've been obeying all those orders very, very politely. He says, but tesham jatamai na karuna na tropa no pashanti. Even though I've been doing whatever they want, yes, my dear tongue, you want to eat a banana. Right away, whatever you want, I'm running to do that. You want to watch this television show. You want a new cell phone. You want a new boyfriend. You want a new husband, a new wife. Right away, my dear senses, I'm obeying whatever you tell me. But Rupa Goswami says that Tesham jatamai na karuna na tropa no pashanti. Even though I've been obeying them, I've been doing everything they told me, still, they haven't shown me any mercy. And what's even worse, natrapa, I don't have any shame. Trapa means shame. And nopashanti, I don't even have any peace of mind. He says, so now I'm getting labdha buddhi, so I'm getting a little bit of intelligence. So, utsri jaitan atta yadupate sampraptam. I'm taking shelter of Krishna. Tamayata saranam abhayam nam niruksvat midashe. And I'm becoming your das. I'm becoming your servant. People make fun of the devotees. They think, how can you serve that man? How can you give up your life and give up all your enjoyment? But they don't see they're the ones who are slaves. They can't give up these things, and they're just following whatever their mind tells them. And repeatedly, throughout our Gaudiya Vaishnava literature, this point is made. Raghunath Das Goswami, in Brajavilastava, in his first verse, says almost the same thing that he says in his Manasiksha, in his fifth verse. He begins his Brajavilastava with this Mangalacharana prayer. Patista Rajubir Badham Kama Dhyarvatma Patibi Chitvatu Sangarantastan Agare Pantumam Bata. He says, I'm bound up by these ropes. And what are these ropes? Pratista Rajubir. Rajubir means ropes. Badham means I'm bound up. Pratista Rajubir Badham. I'm bound up with the ropes of Pratista. And there's certain highwaymen, Vartmapati, thieves, who are coming and doing this. And who are those thieves? Kam Adyar, Kama Adi, lust, anger, greed, and other things. And there I'm being bound up. I think I'm enjoying like anything because I can go into some nightclub and watch some girl take off her clothes. And I think, yes, this is the height of enjoyment, and I'm a free person. But he's completely controlled by his senses. He's completely controlled by the modes of material nature. So how can I become free from that? Even as devotees is a very, very difficult thing. Chitvata samarantastan agare pantumambata. I have to call out very loudly to the devotees of Krishna, the devotees of the killer of the Aga demon, Aga, the Agare pantumambataha. Agasura, Aga also means sin, who's the killer of that sin. So chitvatu, I want to call out to that person, you please come and cut these ropes. In Manasiksha, Raghunath Das Goswami says, Asach chesta kasta pada. Asach chesta kasta pradada vikata pasali biriha prakamam kamadi prakata patapati vitikarai gale badvahanye hamiti baka bidvart mapagane kuru tvam futkaran avati sayata tvam manaita. He says that I'm going on the road to bhakti, and these wicked people, asat chesta, these wicked activities, which are kashtaprada, they're giving me so much pain in the heart. They're vikata, very, very horrible things. And they're ropes which I'm being tied up with, beginning with lust and anger and greed and these things. So what can I do? I can't make progress in bhakti. My senses are not in my control. They just want to eat bananas constantly. And they want to tell me, do this, do that, watch this, eat this, drink this. And I think I'm free, but I'm not free. I'm a slave. So what can I do? He uses the mind, the word futkaran. Futkaran means to scream. Let me call out futkaran to the devotees of Krishna. Please help me. I'm dying. I'm dying. And then those devotees will save me. Narottam Das Thakur has given a beautiful prayer in his Prem Bhakti Chandrika. Seeing if I can, this is the first time we've tried to play the harmonium while we're speaking. I don't know if we can work this or not. Mitravinda's here today. Hare Krishna Brajabanita. Let's see. Very nice song. Nakariho asatista labha puja pratista sagachinta govindachaya sakalavi pata jabe mahanare sukha pabe prema bhakti paramakara. He says, don't do it. Don't endeavor for all these false things, all these unreal things like labha puja and pratista, profit, adoration, and distinction. Rather, sada chinta govinda charan. Always think of the lotus feet of Krishna. And if you do that, then sakala vipata jabe, all that vipati, all those anxieties and calamities, they'll go away. And mahananda sukha pabe, you'll become very, very happy. He says, prema bhakti paramakarana. This is a great cause for loving devotion. So, as described in this verse today, in the Bhagavatam, in the 25th chapter of the 3rd canto, that when one associates with devotees, when one hears and chants in association with devotees, then all the good qualities of humility, modesty, they come to our consciousness. And by the mercy of the devotees, these desires for pratista and distinction, to become an important person, they all go away. By hearing Krishna Katha from their mouths, then this lust, anger, and greed go away, and we get some attachment to bhajan. Narottam Das Thakur describes, Apane palabe saba suniya govinda raba sina rabbe kirtan karidan sakalavi pati jabe mahananda sukha pabe jara hoye ekanta bhajan. He said all these problems, all these vices, this lack of control of my mind, this attachment to sense gratification, they'll all run away when they just hear the sound of Krishna's name. Singa Rabi Keno Korigan, just like elephants start running away when they hear the roar of a lion. Sakala Vipata Jabe Mahananda Sukha Pabe. Jaya Hoy Ekanta Bhajan. When we engage in one-pointed bhajan, then all those calamities go away and we get the topmost bliss. So we want to engage in the service of the devotees. We want to become a servant. And anyone who's not a servant of the devotee, they're a slave. And there's a difference between being a servant and a slave. A servant is something which is chosen, but a slave is something which we don't choose. And there's so many slaves in this world today. Basically, everybody is a slave. So we have this choice. Do I want to be a servant, consciously dedicate myself to the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, and by becoming a servant to the Vaishnavas, then I'll become a liberated soul. Do I want to become a servant, or do I become a slave? That's really our choice. In his purport to this verse today, Srila Prabhupada, in the last section of the purport, he says, it doesn't matter to what category of the world, he says, Lord Chaitanya approved the process of hearing from realized devotees about the pastimes of the Lord. It doesn't matter to what category of this world the audience belongs. If one meekly and submissively hears about the activities of the Lord from a realized soul, he'll be able to conquer the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's unconquerable by any other process. Hearing or associating with devotees is the most important function for self-realization. So it seems that here Srila Prabhupada, as he does many times, he's paraphrasing an important verse, which comes from the 14th chapter, the 10th canto. It's part of the prayers of Lord Brahma. And it's also found in the Ramananda Samvad, the 8th chapter of the Madhya Lila. And up to this point in the discussion between Ramananda Roy and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Roy has told so many things. Mahaprabhu was asking, what is the goal of life? What is the topmost thing? And Ramananda Roy said many, many things. He spoke about Vanashram Dharma. He spoke about serving the Lord. He spoke about Sarva Dharma and Prityaga. And again, Mahaprabhu said, Eho Bhaya, Age Kahar. This is external. Can you say something more? Until Ramananda Roy spoke this verse, which Prabhupada is paraphrasing here in his purport. Jnane prayasamudha pasyanamanta eva jivanti sanmukaritam bhavadiya vartam stane stita shutigatam danuvan manobir ye prayaso ajitabjito paisitais trilokyam. And Mahaprabhu said, oh, this is very good. And finally he accepted. Can you say something more? And the verse describes it, Jnane prayasa udapashyanamanta eva. When I give up all this gyan, in other words, theoretical knowledge, just reading from a book, but I'm not hearing from a devotee. When I give that up, and jivanti sanmukari tam bhavadiyavartam, hearing from the lotus mouth, the satmukh of a devotee becomes my everything. And I'm listening to that bhavadiyavartam, the discussions about Krishna. Then stani stita, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're a grihastha and you never take sannyas and you leave your body when you're 110 and you have 50 children. But if you're hearing properly, it doesn't matter if you're a housewife. It doesn't matter if you're a student. It doesn't matter if you're a sannyasi. Stani stita, stay wherever you're at. Shruti gatam tanuvan manobar, and just hear this Krishna Katha. And if you do that, as Srila Prabhupada says in his purport today, that Krishna, who's unconquerable by any other means, will become conquered. Yipraya so ajita. Krishna's ajita. He's not conquerable, but jito traistri lokyam. He becomes conquered by that devotee who hears and chants about him. So the Bhagavatam 5th canto, there's a nice verse our Gurus used to often quote, which says that there's two weapons to control our mind, two weapons to control our senses. Gurur Harish Charana Pasanastro. Astra means a weapon. The first is the instruction of the spiritual master. And the second is the name of Krishna. And so when we take shelter of these two weapons, we can easily control the mind. Another purport of it, Prabhupada writes in his purport, another meaning of this is, Prabhupada says, there is one easy weapon with which the mind can be conquered, neglect. The mind is always telling us to do this or do that, eat a banana, do this thing. Therefore, we should become very expert in disobeying the mind's orders. Gradually, the mind should be trained to obey the orders of the soul. It's not that one should obey the orders of the mind. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that to control the mind, one should beat it with shoes many times just after awakening and again before going to sleep. And this way one can control the mind. So one of these weapons is just to neglect the mind. We just neglect that instruction that's been given to me, and I take shelter of the instructions given to me by Guru. I take shelter of the holy name of Krishna. These are two secret weapons, our Guru Maharaj used to say, to help one to control the mind. And if we don't do this, then we'll remain slaves. You may be a rich slave, you may be a slave in a fancy cage which has gold bars and you're getting so many nice foods and things, but you're a slave. Until we begin to become a servant, we become a servant of the devotees, we're a slave. There's a nice story in this regard in the life of Srila Ramanujacharya. There was one big festival once in Sri Rangam, and thousands of people had gathered together to see the deity of Lord Ranganath when he came out of the temple. They had the Vijay Vigraha, the small festival deity. A huge crowd had assembled, and people were banging on drums, and the Brahmins were chanting mantras, and everything was very, very auspicious. And then came Lord Ranganath. And on the back of Garuda, they have this huge like cart, which is made in the form of Garuda. And Ranganath comes out with Lakshmi Devi, and everybody's cheering, and people are offering bhoga offerings and prayers and things, and everyone's come to see the Lord. But meanwhile, while all this was going on, everyone was in complete ecstasy seeing the deity, there was one man who was behaving in a completely strange way. He was a very tall, muscular man, and he was just being like swept along with the crowd. He wasn't part of everything. And he was behaving in a very strange way. In one hand, his left hand, he had an umbrella, fancy umbrella, and he was holding the umbrella over the head of a very beautiful young woman so the rays of the sun didn't hit her. And then in his right hand, he had a fan, and he was fanning her. Everybody else is having darshan of the deity and seeing the deity. And here's this fellow completely oblivious to what's going on, that the deity's there whatsoever. He's holding this umbrella over this beautiful girl's head and fanning her with the other hand. And everybody's laughing at him and saying, just see that the deity's here, and this fellow doesn't even realize the Lord is here. He's just paying attention to this beautiful girl. And so Ramanuja was just coming by that way. He'd just taken a bath in the Kaveri River, and he saw the spectacle that was going on. And so he told one of his disciples, he said, you go ask that man to come to me. And so the disciple went over, and he had a hard time even getting the guy's attention because he's just looking at the beautiful face of the girl. And he had to tell him 3 or 4 times, hey, excuse me, hey, you, hey, buddy, you. Like, yeah, what do you want? Like he was asleep or something. And he said, our Guru Maharaj wants to talk to you. Oh, Guru Maharaj, Ramanujacharya, yes. And so he went over to Ramanuja, and he was a cultured person enough. He bowed down at his feet. He was wondering, why does he want to talk to me? And then Ramanuja told him, he said, what kind of nectar have you found in the face of this young woman whose body is just made out of stool and urine and has a thin layer of skin on it and has some hair and nasty things in the body? What kind of nectar have you found in the body of this woman that you're giving up all your shame and everybody's making fun of you? Excuse me. And that personality, whose name was Dhanurdas, he was a wrestler. He folded his hands and he said, oh, Mahatma, I've seen many things in this world, but I've never seen anything that even comes close to the beauty of this young girl. When I see her eyes, I become so captivated, I can't look away. And Ramanuja asked, are you married to her? And he said, no, she's not married to me. But he said, but I'm certain, even though she's not my wife, I'll never love any other woman. And he explained to him that my name is Dhanurdas. I'm famous for being a wrestler. And this girl's name is Himamba. And when Ramanuja heard this from this Dhanurdas, he felt very, very sad that this powerful, pious young man was a slave to the hands of this beautiful woman. And so then Ramanuja told him, he said, if I could show you some eyes that are even more beautiful than Himamba, this girl, would you love this other person? And the wrestler said, if you can do that, then definitely I'll leave her and I'll worship that lady who has these eyes. And then Ramanuja told him, okay, you come and see me tonight in my ashram. And Dhanurdas came that evening, and when he left, again, he put the umbrella over the girl's head and was fanning her, because he's a good slave. to his girlfriend. So that evening, Ramanuja left the ashram just with Dhanurdas, and they walked to the temple of Lord Ranganath. And they went through all the different gates, and finally they came before the deity. And there's no lights inside like ISKCON temples or something, but they had some lamps. And they were offering artik, and he could see the beautiful eyes of Lord Ranganath. And when Dhanurdas saw that, he became stunned. And he just stood there. He couldn't move. He was just staring at Lord Ranganath. And tears of love began to roll down his cheeks. And at that moment, all his attachment to enjoyment, the pleasures in this material world, began to fade away. And finally, after some time, Dhanurdas regained his composure, and he turned to Ramanuja, and he fell at his feet, and he said, "By your mercy, you have given this most lusty man a pleasure which is sought after even by the demigods." He said, "Now I'm your servant forever." He said, "Just like an owl at night, I turned my face away from the sun, and I became infatuated with the glowworm in the form of this woman. But now you've opened my eyes, and you alone are my master." And then Ramanuja embraced him. And then that wrestler, Dhanurdas, became a great devotee of the Lord. And Hemamba, she married Dhanurdas, and the two of them became great devotees. And they began to follow the teachings of Ramanujacharya. There's wonderful stories about them continuing. So many things can be said. But this is our position, just like this wrestler Dhanurdas, who looked like a powerful, successful young man. He's a great wrestler, but he's just a slave. Yoshik Krita Mageshu Cha. He's just a dancing dog in the hands of a woman. He become a slave of his senses. And it's only that when we accept being a servant of the Vaishnavas that we can give up being a slave of our senses. So these are some of the points from this verse and purport today. We've gone much later than normal. I'm sorry, but that's also because we started 15 minutes late today. So many thanks to all the devotees. Radha, good. I hope that devotees could hear the bhajan okay. The microphone is really good for that. Mitravinda is taking so many nice notes. Brajabanita has made a comment. Hare Krishna, Brajabanita. Nice to see you here today. How is it that we can see devotees who live in the temple with other devotees and chant with them, but still their pratisya is very dominant, their vanity is very pronounced, although it may take the form of emphasized humility? Well, we should be careful. If we only focus on the faults of the devotees, we may become discouraged and we may end up going away sooner or later, because we'll think, what's the value? These senior devotees, these people, they're so absorbed in their pratisya, they just want something for themselves. Rather than be absorbed in the negative qualities of them, we should become absorbed in seeing, wow, this is amazing. This person is so proud, but just see, he's absorbed in devotional service. As Prabhupada writes in one letter, he said, we don't criticize someone for being dirty who's standing in the shower. We should see, there's such a great person, they're standing in the shower, and we should see the good qualities of the shower. 2 days ago, we had a cyclone that came here, and when the wind started blowing, we heard a tremendous crashing sound right outside of the door of our flat. And so we came out and we saw there were some buckets of paint which were up near the roof, and the wind had knocked them down here. And so we started to move them. And then I looked in a bucket of paint and I saw there was a little lizard, little baby lizard about this big. And he was drowning. He was completely submerged in this thick white paint. He was going to die. So I reached my hand in and I pulled him out. He was afraid of me, but I pulled him out. And then I put him down, and he could hardly move, completely covered by paint. So then I told Krishna Kun to bring me a pitcher of water, and we started pouring water on him. And eventually almost all the paint came off except some on his face. And then he ran away from us. And yesterday we were walking around over there and we saw that same lizard. He's still alive after 2 days. So we're like that lizard. We're drowning in this paint bucket, and we're going to die unless someone comes and pulls us out. We shouldn't criticize if someone has paint all over them. Rather, we should see, oh, they're getting washed off of that paint. They're being delivered. We should see that thing. As the saying goes, you can see the cup is half empty or the cup is half full. If we only see the faults in the devotees, we're seeing the cup is half empty, and we may become discouraged. Oh, this process doesn't work. These people are nonsense. But if instead of seeing it half empty, we see it half full, this is amazing. This is so amazing. This person, such a materialistic person. But they're here and they're practicing bhakti. We should see and have firm faith in the process of bhakti. Lynn Magulu wrote, has written, shoes are also good for banging on those bars of the golden jail. Yeah, if we bang them on our head really hard, that may wake us up a little bit. Alex has written, Gaura Swami Maharaj is telling a story of a pure Brahmin whose duty was to arrange a marriage for his daughter. Very nice story. He'd gone to hear the Bhagavatam Saptaha while searching for money, and after the Bhagavatam finished, suddenly understood that the marriage had finished also. And when he came back, everyone was very happy. Everyone said, what a nice marriage. So he asked his wife, and his wife said, oh, you came back. He put a little bit wrong here, but you came back and you arranged for everything. I came back? I didn't come back. No? But Krishna had taken the form of him and come back and save the day. So if we take shelter of Krishna Katha, if we take shelter of Krishna's devotees, everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. But if we try to find fault in the people, especially if we try to find fault in the devotees, then what hope are we going to have? What kind of association are we going to have? We'll end up leaving association of the devotees and searching for so-called ethical, moral association. And we may find someone who follows the regulated principles better than the devotees. We may find someone who's more humble, at least externally, than the devotees. But we're going to lose the valuable jewel of bhakti because we won't have anyone to do hearing and chanting with. Brajabanita has written, we need a job for supporting ourselves, for making service. Our job also is a kind of Krishna service. Yes, and Prabhupada said that many times. In the early days, it was the system. All the devotees worked jobs, and they contributed their money to the temple. And they understood. Prabhupada told them, this is your service, and this service is as good as any other service. We should have that consciousness. And if we're working that job while we're doing it, we're thinking, I'm doing this for Gurudev, I'm doing this for the Vaishnavas, and doing it because I'm actually giving money from this. Not just that I'm thinking this is for Gurudev, but I'm going to keep out all the fruits for myself so I could buy nice things and I could feed my cats lots of nice things. If we think like that, then we're not going to get the same result. Okay, so now I want to turn to the devotees here in the room with us and see, does anybody have any comments here? You have something on a Payani?
Yeah.
Why don't you stand up and come here? You can take this microphone and talk into it.
I really appreciate the point that the position of the servant of Vaishnavas is chosen, but the position of slave, nobody chooses, but everybody is slave. And this is really, from one perspective it's sad, but from another perspective for us, because we have this process, it's really inspiring. Then we can choose this position of servant. And this is what I really mark for the...
And sometimes we think that, oh, I become a slave of Gurudev, a slave of this person or that person. But the Vaishnava, the quality of a sadhu is they won't accept that service unless it's voluntary. Yeah. We have to, there's such an important quality. You can't become a servant of the Vaishnava. Just even if you become his slave, somebody sells you to your Guru Maharaj or something, unless it's voluntary. So the position of a servant is always voluntary, but the position of a slave is not.
In this connection also, my Guru Maharaj gave maybe a few years ago the seminar for particularly for the disciples, 10 main instructions. And the first is your service and your choose should be volunteer. This is the first thing. This is really
important.
yeah, and also this story about this person and beautiful lady who then dedicated their life to Ramanujacharya. It's really, really inspiring. But for me, it's a bit controversial because according to this verse from Manach Shiksha, it said that, so and where is it, just a moment. Yeah, that the band of decades on the open road of material life have bound my neck. And Raghunath Das Goswami said that, "O mind, speaking this way, you must grievously cry. You must grievously cry out to the protectors of the path leading to Shri Krishna." So the process, if I understand that I really conquered by this lust, anger, and I slave of these qualities. So I need cry out to the devotees to help me. But interesting that in this story, this person, forgot his name.
Dhanurdas.
No, he didn't cry out, but he just got the mercy of Ramanujacharya. Can you comment on it?
So, by Ramanuja's mercy, he woke up something. But as soon as he saw the beauty of Lord Ranganath by the mercy of Ramanujacharya, he saw the Lord by the mercy of the devotee, then he began to cry.
Yeah.
Then he fell at the feet of Ramanuja and said, "Please help me, please save me."
So it doesn't mean that you even, actually I understood this, you even cannot cry out unless
Some people, we may be so covered over like Dhanurdas, we can't even cry out. It's a fact. So Banish Bhagav has written, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Avashya Rakshibe Krishna principle can be realized practically by taking shelter of pure devotees and serving them. Yes, because the devotees are the manifestation of Krishna, Krishna Kripa Sri Murti. And we have to find a devotee that we have faith in. And again, this principle is very, very important that Anapayani was mentioning, of free will, that I choose on my part to surrender to this devotee. You can't demand that. Just because I'm the temple president, as Brajamanita was kind of intimating, just because I'm the temple president, I'm a senior devotee, get down, bow down to me, give me your money, give me this or that. You can't demand that kind of thing. You might get some money, you might get some cheap followers like that, but it's not really bhakti. Bhakti, to become a servant of the Vaishnavas, is something someone has to willingly, on their own, do. And if we don't take shelter of the devotee, Yeme bhakta jana parta name bhakta sate jana mad bhaktanam chaye bhaktas teme bhakta tamomata. Maybe my favorite verse. Krishna tells Arjuna in the Adi Purana, those persons who say they're my devotee, they're not my devotee. Someone who's trying to take shelter of Krishna on your own without taking shelter of the devotees, you're not a devotee of Krishna. But someone who's taking shelter of the devotees, they're my real devotee. Now, how do we take shelter of the devotees? That question comes. Tate Krishna Bhaji Kode Guru Sevan. We take shelter of Gurudev by chanting Hare Krishna. That pleases him. So the two are intertwined together. But if we take Guru out of the principle, if we take the Vaishnava out of the principle, and we think I don't have any faith, they're all bogus, I'm just going to chant Hare Krishna, and I'll take shelter of Krishna on my own, then you'll never get a proper result. Okay? Anything else? Krishna Kun? Just talk right into it.
First of all, I love this verse because it's so inspiring. Just the original verse, the Bhagavatam that we read, this verse 27, is just so inspiring for me. But that by not engaging in the service of the modes, but by developing Krishna consciousness, one achieves my association in this very life. And just this point, it's just completely amazing that it's possible. But how it's possible? It's possible by crying to the devotees. And even when we are not crying, by the devotees' mercy, who make it possible for us to cry for their mercy. And I marked that Narottam Das Thakur in Prema Bhakti Chandrika, which you mentioned, how the elephant flee when they hear the roaring of a lion. And and I actually looked up this, where he writes this, Premut Bhakti Chandika 25, that devotees do not cast out enemies like lust and anger, but they automatically flee from the hearts of practicing devotees. Upon hearing the sound of Sri Govinda's holy names attributes pastimes which resembles the roar of a lion. And this is the power of devotional service. And this is just an amazing, amazing thing to me. That, okay, we are trying from our side. We should try, because there should be endeavor and mercy. But in actuality, we just need to try. And this is, for me, this is just so encouraging. It also reminded me of something that Niranjan Mai spoke about a couple of days ago. We were speaking Bihad Bhagavatamrita, second part, chapter 3, Bhajan, that chapter, where there is this description of the Vaikuntha Dutas speaking to Gopakumar about hearing and remembering. And before they get into that, they speak about the senses not being able to actually perform any devotional service. We know this, Atashi Krishna Namadina Bhavedgayam India. We know this, that material senses cannot touch the name, form, qualities of pastimes of Krishna, that this is by Krishna's mercy. But I understood this I feel that I understood a little more about this today by the story of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta that you quoted from Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava, that really this is the consciousness of an actual devotee, that anything which is prasadam of the Lord, in whatever form, we are not the seer of that, we are not the enjoyer of that, but that is, we are for that in their enjoyment. And this reminded me of the point that Niranjan Maharaj made, that we cannot force our way into the spiritual world. We can try, we can endeavor, we can cry for mercy, and then we just wait for mercy.
There's a couple questions I want to address. I'm sorry, we're going late. Usually we don't go this late. We had some problems with our computer, had to reboot. And yesterday we weren't here because we had no electricity and no internet because of the cyclone. So a few questions here. Brajabani again is pointing out, even to offer your service or to meet your guru, you need some job. Yeah, we have to do something in this world. So that we shouldn't think that job is something mundane. This job is something very good. This job is something which is helping me to serve my Gurudev, helping me to go to see him, to render service to the Vaishnavas. Ronak Chaudhary has asked, how do we cry for Guru's mercy? My Guru Maharaj used to call it Atma Krandana, the crying of the soul. So we have to have some association with an advanced Vaishnava, and then we wake up. Otherwise, we're just slaves, like this Dhanardas, who's a slave to the beauty of this mundane woman. But when by the mercy of Ramanuja he saw the deity, then he came to his senses and he began to cry and cry. So Guru Maharaj used to say that in association with people who are crying for Krishna, you can also cry. But if we associate with people who are crying for Maya, then we'll cry for that. Lynn McDougall's asked, sometimes I don't know if devotees have devotional names or not, I'm just reading what's said here. She said, what if you've not found a guru? Well, we should understand that Guru is always present, because Krishna is always present. And Krishna's Adi Guru, he's in the heart. So, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says in one article, that when Krishna sees our sincerity and we're crying in the heart to Krishna, oh Krishna, you please send me Guru. I can't see who's who. I don't want to get cheated. I don't want to go and surrender to someone and try to become a servant to someone who's a bogus person. That's going to cause so many problems in my life. So how can I find who's a genuine person? According to my sincerity, when Krishna sees the sincerity we have in our heart, and he says, and the devotion meaning our chanting, our calling out to Krishna, our reading Srimad Bhagavatam, then Krishna will send us Guru. It's a very important point. Achintya Nittai Prabhu has written a question. Brajabani says, thanking Krishna Kun for her comment. It was a really good comment, wasn't it? Such a nice point that Narottam Das Thakur is making, that the devotees don't try to give up lust, anger, and greed. They don't try to They're just slaves. But now I want to become a servant of the Vaishnavas. And by serving them, I want to hear and chant. And then all those things will go away. So a question, he says, there are two things that look controversial. Resurrect and airboats devotees. I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Never criticize them, okay. Don't criticize devotees. And at the same time, if I don't have the qualities of humility and service, it's not good. Okay, I think I can understand your point that it seems like a contradiction, that I shouldn't be false, and but I should take shelter of the devotees. And so sometimes we see, as Brajabanita pointed out too, sometimes devotees are acting like they're humble, but they're really not. Srila Prabhupada gave a nice comment about this, which we've commented on a few times. We heard from Gargamuni Prabhu recently, that all the devotees, when they started associating with Prabhupada, after a few weeks, some of the devotees started offering obeisances to Prabhupada. And Gargamuni decided, I'm not going to do that. And he went to see Srila Prabhupada. He was very straightforward. And he said, Prabhupada, a lot of the devotees are offering obeisances to you. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm not going to do it because I don't really feel inspired in my heart. And Prabhupada told him, no, you do it, and by doing it, you'll become inspired. And Gargamuni said it was an amazing thing. I started offering obeisances, and then this feeling came to my heart. So in a similar way, humility sometimes is artificial. It's not really natural. But if we behave in a humble way with the Vaishnavas, then that humility will actually become ours. It'll become real. So I'm going to stop there. Krishna Kun has something else again? Okay, it's really late.
Yeah, it's late, but it's very important for me. Okay, story of Ranganath, Ramanujacharya, and the Danudas and Hema, the beautiful young girl. What if that young man didn't have such an experience by seeing the deity? That experience only comes by the mercy of a devotee like Ramanujacharya. And I was thinking about Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Bhaktisattva Vivek. He says that that's the only hankering which is never material, is hankering for taste in devotional service. And I just wanted to mention that because it's really, for me, it was a big question, that what if that person doesn't have such an experience? We should be hankering for that taste so that we can actually see Krishna as beautiful, so we can relish his service, relish serving the Vaishnavas.
As we were reading a few days ago from a lecture Prabhupada gave, my computer may die any moment. Prabhupada said that the purpose of the devotee is to give, the purpose of the preacher is to give taste. And if they can't give taste, they're not even a preacher. So Ramanuja, he's a proper preacher. He could give taste to that person. Natalia has written, thank you for reminding that proper hearing cleanses our heart from material desires. It's so often, and I miss it. We have to regularly, Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana. We have to hear every day. Okay, and that's what Ronak said. Please thank you for